I want to keep covering this because this further demonstrates that we are locked on the set of the Twilight Zone. There are people, well, there's this bill called HB 2744 that just made itself out of committee. And it's the bill that attempts to raise the age to buy a semi-automatic rifle from 18 to 21, which means that they're trying to make into law well, it's going to be an infringement law in Texas. You are going to have your rights trampled on by the Texas state legislature. If it passes, it moved out of committee and now it's going to go to the House, and they'll probably strike it down, which they should. And more accurately, it's against individual rights. So basically what people are saying is, no, you as an American under 21 years of age do not have the right to reach out your hand and purchase a semi-automatic rifle. You don't have the right. Yeah, we know the Constitution says shall not be infringed, but you don't have the right to do it. Here's them taking this thing out of committee and the applause that ensues afterward.
Is the age to buy certain semi-automatic rifles from 18 to 21. Chairman Canales offers up committee substitute. Committee substitute allows for transfers to an individual under 21 for certain circumstances. Is there objection to the adoption of the committee substitute? Chair hears none. Substitute is adopted. Representative Goodwin moves that House Bill 2744 as substituted be reported favorably to the full House with a recommendation that do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chair Dean? Vice Chair Johnson?
Aye.
Representative Bowers?
Aye.
Representative Burrows?
Remember, everybody who votes for this at one time took an oath, raised their hand, did the Bible and the whole thing before God and man and heaven and all that kind of stuff. I promise I will protect, defend, preserve, and uphold the right to keep and bear arms, and I will not be an infringer of it. And every yay that you hear is infringement, infringement, infringement. There's going to be 8 infringement yays.
Representative Canales?
100% aye.
Representative Horacio?
No.
Representative Goodwin?
Aye.
Representative Harless?
Aye.
Representative Holland?
Aye.
Representative King? Aye. Representative Landgraf? No. Representative Moody?
Aye.
Representative Crossberg?
There being 8 ayes, 5 nays, and 0 present not voting, the motion.
And what are they applauding? Yay! People under 21 years just lost their right to keep a certain kind of firearm that they want to keep. Yay for infringement. They are literally applauding. I mean, we say it so many times I get sick of saying it, but we shouldn't get sick of hearing it or saying it. They're applauding the chains of their own oppression. This guy right here says, and these are some of the arguments. Look what Geraldo said, first of all. Geraldo says, all politicians who pose with their AR-15 should also pose with those gruesome piles of innocent victims. Boo-hoo. I ain't giving up my rights. Ain't giving them up for nobody. Your rights are more important than policymakers. Your rights are more important than policies. Your rights are more important than opinions. Your rights are more important than feelings. Your rights are more important. Here, let me ask you this question. Are your rights more important than lives taken by a madman? Some would contend yes. And the reason they say that is because if you lose your rights, then you will literally lose your life. Historically speaking, that's what happens. When a massive amount of people thinks it's a good idea to give their rights away and to give their means of self-defense away, then the government moves in and they won't even have enough graves for the bodies that must be, they got to dig holes with excavators. Because when you lose your rights, you end up, historically speaking, losing your life. Your rights are your life. It's the same thing. No rights, no life. This guy says AR-15s weren't even conceived when the Second Amendment was written. This bill right here, by the way, this HB 2744, you cannot legislate morality. No piece of legislation you put in place is going to keep a madman from getting a gun and doing what he wants to with people. He will violate their consent. He will trample over their will. He will take their lives, and nothing Congress can do will stop that. So laws don't legislate. You can't legislate morality as if morality could actually come out of the halls of government. It can't. Only immorality can, because all they know is force. That's why Washington said government is not eloquence. It's not reason. It's force. And like fire, it's a dangerous servant and a fearful master. That was true 250 years ago. It's true today. So this guy says AR-15s weren't even conceived when the Second Amendment was written. So what? Do you think if we were able to interview the founding fathers, if we said, hey, the government has AR-15s, do you think we should have AR-15s? They'd look at you like, I'm not even going to give you a response. You know what the answer to the question is. If the government has Apache helicopters, should the people have Apache helicopters? We started a revolution against the most powerful government in the entire world. If that government had Apache helicopters, whatever that is, the founding fathers would say, I'm sure you'll fill me in later. Yeah, we should have Apache helicopters too. We should have AR-15s. What do you mean there's a conversation in America right now where people are actually talking about legitimizing the infringement of rights for people under 21 years of age? What's going on? What kind of turn did you guys take down the dark path? The NRA fully understands what the words well-regulated militia means, but they don't care, which is really interesting because there's this CNN write-up. You can see this is archived from CNN Politics talking about the Second Amendment. Look what they said when they gathered some experts together, and look what the expert says. It says, what is a militia? It says, what did it mean to be well-regulated? One of the biggest challenges in interpreting a centuries old, this is CNN, this is the Counterfeit News Network, this is the top shelf authoritative source, according to some people. Interpreting the centuries old document is that the meanings of words change or diverge. Well-regulated in the 18th century tended to be something like well-organized, well-armed, well-disciplined. It didn't mean regulation in the sense that we use it now, in that it's not about the regulatory state. So it's not about the federal government going in, hey, we're going to regulate you. We're going to control you. We're going to issue you firearms, or we're going to withhold firearms, or we're going to control you. No, it's just according to CNN, according to the experts they've gathered, one of these two guys right here, Jeffrey Rosen and Jack Rakov, says that it didn't mean regulation in the sense that we use it now, in that it's not about the regulatory state. In other words, it's not about being controlled by the government. There's been nuance there. It means that the militia was in an effective shape to fight. And that's just the militia. That's the militia part. Well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, comma, the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Not the necessity. It's not the bill of needs, because people are always going, what do you need an AR-15 for? You don't need an AR-15. Well, good thing it's not the bill of needs. It's not the bill of wants. It's not the bill of necessities. It's the bill of rights. I don't have to explain to you why I want an AR-15. I don't have to explain to you how many bullets I have, or what caliber of bullet I have, or when I bought it, or who it belonged to before then, or who I purchased it from. I don't have to explain anything to you. I have a right, and I'm going to exercise my right. And if you don't like it, screw you. In other words, it didn't mean the state was controlling the militia. This is CNN, let me remind you again, in a certain way, but rather that the militia was prepared to do its duty. To what? To secure a free state. Not just a free geographic state, but a state of mind. But you don't even need that, guys. We don't need a Second Amendment. You have the right to do whatever you want to do, as long as you're not harming, threatening to harm, or damaging somebody's property. This guy says the NRA fully prioritizes money over human lives. They don't care about people, not even children. I bet most of the people, I'm not a part of the NRA, would never be a part of the NRA. I know that it's an anti-Second Amendment group because they came up with the NICS instant background check system. NRA is not your friend. But does that mean that NRA doesn't say right things at sometimes? They're like, the NRA talking point is the only thing that can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with the gun. Do you agree with the NRA? It's like, well, for the most part, I don't agree with the NRA, but I agree with that fact right there. That is just a fact. What is going to stop a madman with a gun? A good guy with a gun. Period. And like we've said many times on this channel, if it wasn't true, then who are you calling when you're dialing 911? When you're dialing 911, who are you calling? Who do you hope to get in contact with? What you perceive to be a good guy, and you want him to have a gun because that guy with a gun is going to come and get your butt out of a sling, hopefully. Usually, those men with guns, those cops, they arrive after the fact, only in enough time to order the body bags. They're not going to stop any kind of crime. That's why it's better for somebody already to be on the scene, to be familiar with their firearm, to have already, reached out their hand and exercised their freedom and bear arms. They're in the process of bearing arms right now. That's the guy you want to be stuck in aisle 5 with. If you're in a grocery store and people are shooting up the place, you don't want to be stuck with 5 people who have a cell phone so they can dial 911 together and all probably pairs together. You want to be stuck in the aisle with that one guy who's got that firearm and he knows how to use it. And he ain't afraid to use it because he wants to live, and he probably wants you to live too. So I just wanted to go over this. House Bill 2744 has passed out of committee. It's going to go to the House, probably get struck down. But you know what? This is why you never want to put your rights up for a vote. This is why you never want to hang your hat on an amendment. The Second Amendment is not there to give you your rights. It's just there to recognize rights that you already have before it was even written and after it's amended. You know the Second Amendment will eventually be amended to say, well, it can be infringed under certain circumstances by Big Daddy government. You don't have rights because you have a Second Amendment. You have rights because you're a human being. Period. We got to get that ingrained in us. Besides, let's say they took AR-15s away. Let's say they took all automatic rifles away. Let's say they could snap their fingers and all 25 or 30 million of them in America are gone. What if the next mass shooting is done by a handgun with a high capacity magazine or a 100-round drum or a 50-round drum or whatever? Or let's say it's just done with a 12-round magazine, but he had 5 12-round magazines. He was able to empty them real quick. And what if it resulted in the same amount of victims as this last thing that happened in Texas? Then they're going to come after those handguns and those magazines. It will never, if you give an inch, it will never be enough for them. It's like they came for the AR-15, but because I didn't have an AR-15, I didn't stand up and say anything. Then they came for the handguns. Then they came for all magazines. Then they came for all the ammunition. It's not going to be enough for them. The laws aren't going to make you safer. Removing AR-15s and assault-style rifles, whatever they call it, is not going to make the problem better. Removing handguns is not going to make the problem better because you know that this is incremental. This is problem, reaction, solution. This is the Hegelian dialectic in action. This is the frog boiling in the water already dead. And they're going to keep on going and keep on going. That's why we have to keep on talking about this and solidify in our own hearts, not just a belief system. Oh, I believe we have the right to keep and bear arms. I know we have the right to keep and bear arms. Why? Because it's logical. It's reasonable. It's within the framework of morality, and nobody's got the right to take your right away, which is exactly what gun control regulation is. They want to enact government-sanctioned, government-funded gun violence against you because they feel uncomfortable that somebody just shot up a mall or a school or a post office with a long rifle, and they don't even understand. Leave your thoughts about this. I want to know what you guys have to say about this. If I'm wrong, let me know I'm wrong, and let's have a conversation, but it's got to be on the plane of logic, reason, and morality.